In each episode, we are taking a deeper look at transformative shifts shaping global ecosystems, from industry megatrends and technology innovation to evolving customer expectations. Today, we're getting into one of the most dynamic corners of the EV ecosystem, the global charging point operator industry. The numbers alone tell a compelling story. The CPO infrastructure industry is growing at a CAGR of 34.3% between 2024 and 2031. But the real story is not about scale, it is about what CPOs are actually becoming. We are moving away from the idea that a charging point operator is someone who installs hardware, collects kilowatt hour revenue, and waits for EV adoption to grow. The operators pulling ahead today are building something entirely different: AI driven energy networks, subscription platforms, grid services, and cross industry partnerships that generate revenue in ways that were not even possible 3 years ago. In this episode, we are covering the strategic imperatives reshaping the CPO landscape, the growth drivers every operator should be paying attention to, and the specific opportunities that are defining the next phase of competitive leadership. So stay tuned. Let's start with the core shift. For a long time, the charging point operator model was relatively straightforward. Find a site, install a charger, charge a fee per kilowatt hour. That model is not gone, but it is no longer a competitive differentiator. It is the floor, not the ceiling. What's changing the equation is the convergence of three forces happening simultaneously. EV adoption is scaling fast enough that CPOs cannot afford to operate with thin margins and no secondary revenue streams. Customer expectations, from fleet operators, retail sites, and corporate campuses, are rising sharply in terms of reliability, uptime, and digital experience. And competitive pressure is intensifying as utilities, automakers, and energy companies enter the charging space with resources and ecosystems that pure-play hardware operators simply cannot match on their own. Forward-thinking operators are responding by integrating AI-driven asset management, vehicle-to-grid capabilities, dynamic pricing, and energy storage directly into how they run their networks. The result is a business that looks far more like a technology and energy company than a traditional infrastructure operator. Is your organization positioned to compete as the CPO landscape shifts from infrastructure to intelligence? Three imperatives are driving the strategic decision-making of CPOs right now, and understanding them is the difference between leading the next phase of growth and being caught behind it. First, competitive intensity is accelerating the platform shift. The EV charging industry has moved well beyond pure play operators. Utilities are deploying charging networks alongside grid services. Automakers are bundling charging into vehicle ownership experiences. Energy companies are entering with procurement scale that individual CPOs cannot replicate. The CPOs holding their ground are not the ones with the most chargers deployed. They are the ones with the most intelligence embedded in those networks. Data analytics, energy management platforms, and customer experience layers that create stickiness and defensible competitive positions. Second, transformative megatrends are demanding new business models. Charging as a service, or CaaS, is gaining real traction as fleet electrification accelerates across Europe and North America. Under this model, the CPO absorbs capital expenditure in exchange for a subscription relationship with the customer, a fleet operator, a corporate campus, a logistics hub. That shift from transactional to recurring revenue fundamentally changes the financial profile of a CPO. Energy integration is the other megatrend transforming the economics. Fast charging sites once faced demand charges that consumed 40 to 80% of operating costs. By integrating battery storage, AI-driven load optimization, and grid services capabilities, operators are turning those cost centers into revenue streams, discharging stored energy back to the grid during peak periods, and monetizing flexibility in ways that hardware-only operators simply cannot access. Third, industry convergence is creating cross-sector growth pathways. The partnerships being formed right now are defining who wins the next decade of CPO growth. Partnerships with energy companies are enabling optimized power procurement and demand management. Collaborations with automakers are driving higher network utilization through bundled offerings. Real estate alliances are securing high-traffic locations that competitors cannot easily replicate. Beyond the strategic imperatives, five growth drivers are reshaping the EV charging infrastructure landscape and creating new avenues for expansion. Let's move through them quickly. 1. Infrastructure demand is accelerating. As automakers launch EV only lineups and phase out internal combustion engines, the demand for reliable public and semi public charging is growing faster than most deployment programs can keep up with. Underserved urban and suburban regions represent particularly high value white space for operators willing to move early. 2. Technology is raising the bar on user experience. Ultra fast charging solutions and the adoption of open standards are both improving interoperability and reducing charge times. For CPOs, investing in next generation charging architectures is becoming a customer retention issue, not just a technical one. 3. Business diversification is opening the ecosystem. Utility companies are entering the charging point operations space and bringing grid integration capabilities that pure play operators have to either build or partner for. This is blurring traditional industry lines and creating both competitive pressure and partnership opportunities simultaneously. 4. Fleet electrification is driving self operated infrastructure demand. Shared mobility providers and logistics companies electrifying their fleets are not interested in public charging networks alone. They need dedicated depot charging, route optimization, and energy management solutions delivered as a turnkey package. CPOs that can deliver that are capturing significant ground in a segment with high contract value and long-term revenue visibility. 5. ESG mandates are creating a B2B growth channel. Corporate stakeholders are investing in on-site EV charging to meet sustainability commitments. For CPOs, this B2B channel offers long-term contract potential, predictable revenue, and client relationships that go well beyond individual charging transactions. How is your organization aligning its growth strategy with these five drivers to build a resilient and scalable revenue pipeline? Let's get specific about the growth opportunities that separate leading CPOs from those still playing catch-up. The shift to charging as a service is probably the most structurally significant business model change in this industry since the first public charger was installed. Under CaaS, the CPO owns and operates the infrastructure while the customer, a fleet operator, a workplace, a retail site, pays a monthly subscription. The customer avoids heavy capital outlay. The CPO gains a recurring revenue relationship that compounds over the length of the contract. For operators with the capital and the operational capability to execute this model at scale, CaaS is a genuine competitive moat. The energy monetization opportunity is equally significant and arguably less understood. When a CPO integrates battery storage, AI-driven load optimization, and vehicle-to-grid capabilities into a fast-charging site, that site becomes an active participant in energy markets. Stored energy discharged during peak grid demand can generate revenue that offsets and in some cases exceeds the demand charges that once made fast-charging sites economically marginal. This is not a future state scenario. Operators with the right technology stack are doing this today. The broader implication is that CPOs investing in these capabilities now are building a business model that gets more valuable as EV penetration grows. Every new EV on the road, every new fleet contract signed, every grid flexibility event monetized adds to the recurring revenue stack. Operators still focused primarily on hardware deployment are watching that window narrow. Are you investing in the platform capabilities and energy intelligence that will define CPO leadership through 2031? The CPOs setting the competitive standard are doing a few things consistently well. They are treating data and software as strategic assets, not infrastructure add-ons. Predictive maintenance, dynamic pricing, and utilization analytics are not features they offer. They are how these operators manage their entire network. That software-first mindset is allowing them to scale without proportionally scaling cost. They are building cross-industry partnerships strategically. Not every partnership delivers equally. The leading operators are choosing energy company partnerships for grid access and power procurement advantages, automaker partnerships for utilization guarantees and bundled customer pipelines, and real estate partnerships for high-traffic location control that competitors cannot easily replicate. And they are shifting their revenue mix deliberately, moving from a predominantly per-transaction model toward a combination of CAS subscriptions, energy services revenue, and B2B enterprise contracts creates a business that is fundamentally more resilient and more attractive to investors and strategic partners. The core message from the growth perspective underlying this episode is clear. CPOs that delay the transition from hardware provider to intelligent energy platform are not just leaving revenue on the table. They are allowing the competitive distance between themselves and platform first operators to grow wider quarter by quarter. Which best practices is your organization benchmarking against, and how quickly can you close the gap? Thanks for joining us on Frost & Sullivan's Growth Podcast. For access to our research, competitive benchmarking, and best practice frameworks, head over to frost.com or email us at hello@frost.com. We'll be back soon with more to help you stay clear-headed and growth ready.